Good
Hi, how are
morning.
you? Good morning.
How are you?
I apologize for the late start here. Let me get this camera set. There we go. All right.
All right.
Okay. All right, let's see. Let me check my recording, make sure that's good to go.
hmm
And yeah, we're good to go. Okay.
Okay.
So we're interviewing Joseph Campbell this morning.
Yes, Joseph Campbell.
Yeah, that's exciting. A lot of people are really excited about this interview. I've been telling some people that we were going to do it, and they're very excited about it. So.
I see. I see. So today I have been speaking to Eric.
Yeah.
I had a wonderful dream visitation from him in the morning hours. So
Yeah.
he visits me in the dreams. He does that to give me this wonderful experience.
Uh-huh.
And very clear messages, because dreams are very clear messages.
Right.
And so he's been with me quite a lot since morning, and he also invited Mr. Joseph Campbell in,
Uh-huh.
and um, I'm having a wonderful time. That's all I can say.
Oh, that's great. I'm so excited. That's great.
I have also been listening to Mr. Campbell on YouTube. There are lots of his videos.
Yes, there are. Yeah.
And he has such wonderful ideas. The way he explains things is wonderful, just simply wonderful.
He's pretty
Yeah.
marvelous.
Yes.
All right, so should we begin with a question for Mr. Campbell? Is he there?
He is there, and let me explain to you the energy he brings in.
Sure.
So he has this personality of availability. He's very available.
Yes.
He's very excited,
Uh-huh.
and he is very open to discussing ideas, to discussing perspectives and opinions. And he is just a person who I would describe as somebody who is very passionate.
Yes.
And just very passionate about everything he decides to put his hand into and delve into. He will be putting his 100% into it, just like a child would give his 100% to anything he decides to do. It's that energy. It's amazing. Yeah, so he's been wonderful. I
Excellent.
think he's saying hello, John.
Hello.
And he's saying, I'm waiting for your questions.
I overslept today, so it's cut me a little bit of slack.
That was what the comment was about. He's saying, yes, I'm waiting for your questions.
All right, then, Mr. Campbell, should we call him Mr. Campbell or Joe or what exactly? What is he like?
He likes Joe.
Yes, he does. That's what I figured. Okay. Joe, did you happen to catch our interviews with your three favorite philosophers, Oswald Spengler, Friedrich Nietzsche, and Arthur Schopenhauer? Those guys were your three favorite philosophers, and it was your work that I discovered in college that turned me on to them. So I was wondering if you enjoyed those, if you knew about those conversations, or what you thought about us.
His comment was, yes, sir, I did. That, his words, not his words this time. And he's saying, I enjoyed them very much.
Great. Oh, that's great. Okay. Joe, you didn't believe in God or the afterlife or even reincarnation when you were alive. You sort of, you regarded all those things as symbols for psychological states. I'm wondering, when you got onto the other side and you sort of were confronted with the reality of these things that you had been regarding as symbols all of your life, was this a big surprise for you?
He said, and what a shock it was. I love the way he talks. He say, and what a shock it was.
I bet. That's great. Oh, that's amazing. All right. One of your favorite thinkers was Carl Jung. Have you had any contact with Carl Jung on the other side?
he's giving me words, which is very useful, very helpful.
Mhm.
He's saying, as a matter of fact, I did,
Yeah.
and I've had some very interesting exchange of ideas and conversations with him.
You have. Okay. Are there limits to knowledge? I mean, are there certain things, certain secrets about the universe that the living aren't allowed to know?
The answer to the first question, he's saying there are no limits to knowledge.
Okay. All right.
Because knowledge is when something is dependent on something, you call it subjective.
Yeah.
Because he's saying knowledge is subjective.
Yeah.
It depends on it depends on the creative consciousness, in the sense whatever you could think of, you can create, and whatever you can create, you can learn about. So anything you can imagine, you can create, and that anything is possible, and that's why knowledge is about learning about those creations. So you're just learning about yourself, because you create and then you learn about it. But obviously you can say that creating is a different person and learning is a different person. So someone who is creating is a different person, and someone who is learning about those creations is a separate person. But everything is one. So that's why he's saying knowledge is unlimited. And what was the second question?
The second question was, are there certain things that the living are not allowed to know?
You can say that in the sense that knowing them will disrupt the organic cycle of living on this plane.
Right.
So you can say that.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I figured. Myth acts as a kind of metaphysical immune system for cultures, like the Greek immune system rejected the Persians, for instance, and the West has been trying to keep Islam out of its body social ever since Charles Martel and the Battle of Tours in 732, where a kind of Western Boundary Act was created that prevented the Moors from crossing the Pyrenees. Should we continue in the West to keep Islam out of the civilization, or will Islam eventually be incorporated in the Western body social in a way that might surprise us?
He was talking about fear. Is the fear playing a part in keeping it away? And he's saying how fear is powerful. So he's saying by trying to keep something away out of fear, you are actually opening the door, making the doors wide open for the thing to come in more and more.
I see.
The more you try to push it away out of fear, the more it comes into the culture. Because he's saying we are programmed to pay attention to fear. That's our survival technique. So if you're fearful of something, then you want to know more about it so that you can be safe. So you sort of give it a negative attention in fear to know more about it, and then it becomes more powerful, and then that's how it comes into the culture, because then everyone knows about it, everyone has the knowledge about it, and it's the more people find out about something, the more it becomes a part of the culture.
Should Turkey be allowed into the EU then, along this thinking?
That's not probably how I would put it, but he is putting it in a way, keep your enemies close.
I see.
So if you're fearing something, keep it, saying know more about it. Keep a close eye on it.
Okay, well, that makes a certain amount of sense. Yeah, that's... Jill Garreau wrote a book about the 9 nations of North America, which transcend the boundaries of the states. Are there hidden cultural unities within the United States that we're not aware of that may one day, like, balkanize and break away from the overarching body social of the U.S.? Are there going to be some balkanizations and breakaways?
Um, I heard the word definitely, and
Wow.
I'm not getting any more explanation from him about it. But let
Okay.
me pursue a little bit.
Uh-huh.
Um, but why do you think that will be? He is pointing about. He is pointing towards the culture. Um, he's talking about spiritual level. It will be on a spiritual level. So
Uh-huh.
it will be that they don't want to. They don't agree with the culture, which is um, spiritually doesn't agree with them, sort of on a moral level.
Okay. So there will be some balkanizations that will take place. Okay. Is the nation state going to fall away and give rise to the city state? Are we in a way? The cities seem like they in the future they might become more and more self-governing. And is there a way that we might be retrieving the sort of Greek model of the city state and as the nation state falls away?
He did give me a visual, which I think means that there will be city states,
Okay.
sort of really local people making decisions about what's going to happen locally. That sort of a visual. And there will still be something on the national level, but the purpose and the constitution of it will be very different from what it is now.
Will floating cities play a role in this?
He's talking about time, the time of the floating city, and what he gave me the visual about cities is a different time that doesn't sync.
So
So
the
what
answer
is
the answer would be what now?
no?
No, he doesn't see floating cities playing a role in that. Oh wow. Okay, that's somewhat of a surprise. Okay. Um, all right. What religion came the closest to actually apprehending the structure of the way the cosmos really works? Was it Hinduism? Was it Gnosticism? Which one, Joe, do you think came the closest?
To explaining how the actual sort of other realms
Yeah,
are.
that everything works with reincarnation and souls physicalizing in bodies and so forth. What does he think was the closest one?
My opinion is different from his. I was just arguing with him a little bit. He's saying it's Hindus. The
Yeah.
religion of
Okay.
Hinduism came very close at explaining it at a very deep levels.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
I'm not surprised by that answer, given his proclivity for Hindu thought. He loved the Hindus.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Was there ever an Atlantis?
Yes.
Oh, there was.
Is that the underwater city?
Yeah, that sank.
Me that visual, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so there was an Atlantis. Are we ever going to find the ruins of it?
He's saying very unlikely, and he's also saying that it's because we won't be able to recognize it as being Atlantis. And he's saying we might have already found some things which belong to it, but we haven't recognized it as being from Atlantis.
Oh, wow. Will there be archaeological surprises once the ice melts on Greenland? Are we going to find stuff there that's...
Yes.
Yeah,
He's
Spangler said
very
the same thing. Yeah,
about. He's very excited. He's like, yeah.
All right. Yeah, he would be. Okay. Let's see. Were the Olmecs the Olmecs an offshoot of the Chinese Shang Dynasty civilization? Because I know you used to write a lot about the similarities between the Olmec culture, 1200 BC, and how similar their culture forms are to the Chinese civilization, especially the Shang dynasty. But did the Chinese play a role in the foundation of the Olmecs?
He's talking about how the myths and stories were brought of the Chinese culture affected the Olmecs. So I guess it did play a role.
Yeah, that's what I would figure. Okay.
He's talking also about the traditions and cultures and festivals, just sort of traditions played a role. Were to the Olmecs from Chinese dynasty.
Rudolf Steiner, the German mystic, was somebody I don't think you ever read, but Rudolf Steiner used to say that there are actually real spiritual beings. And so when we say that in the case of Islam, Muhammad heard the angel Gabriel come down and speak to him, did that in fact actually take place? Did a real angel come and speak to him?
I'm talking to him about the definition of angel. So what does he understand by angel? What do you understand by angel? What do I understand when we say angel? Because if you remove the word angel and if you talk about a spiritual being, then yes. But then how do you define an angel? Was that being of a good intent? Yes. So I don't know if that's what you would define as an angel. That meant good? Yes.
What about the Archangel Michael? Steiner used to talk a lot about the Archangel Michael. Is that a real being? Is there a real Archangel Michael?
There is a being who refers or sees himself as Archangel Michael because he has been created via the collective consciousness, because there are so many people who believe in him. There is a being who is created because we created yes. So the answer is yes.
So a people's collective beliefs can actually cause a real being to arise?
Yes, we are. Yes, definitely, because he's saying yes, because we are also a part of that consciousness that creates. So if we believe together into something, then we create it.
Oh, wow. That's okay. What about Christ? Was he actually an incarnate God? Or was he was an incarnate? Okay.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay, he was... all right. Will there be other civilizations in the future that come out of North America? Is the American sort of Roman ecumeny going to disintegrate and give rise to new cultures that we're not even suspecting will come into being?
He's giving me visualizations now. He's not giving me words, so I'm just trying to pay attention.
Okay.
Then visualizations is that I have to then interpret it, and I interpret it my way. So I'm asking if he can give me feelings or thoughts or words. He gives me an image of, again, the phoenix, something collapsing and then rising of the new. So which I would interpret as, yes, there would be new cultures emerging out of dying cultures. So that's what I would interpret it as. Is that correct? He's saying it's that is the normal cycle of transformation, of change. Something dying in you and something new emerging out of it.
Right.
So if you have to grow, then there has to be cycle this dying and rebirthing, and cultures will also follow that cycle to grow into civilizations.
Yeah, so Spengler was right in that sense. Spengler used to also talk about how Russian civilization was in its nascent state. It was sort of a brand new civilization, and the future sort of belonged to Russia. Was he right about Russia as being the next sort of the future belonging? What he was?
Are you saying Russia?
Russia, yeah.
The next power?
Yeah, is it going to be the next big civilization?
Then what will be? Very interesting. So he was talking about intellectual wise, the people in Russia are very far ahead intellectually, and although the culture doesn't support it being a superpower, the culture, the traditions, the stories, the myths don't support the idea of superpower. So, and then I went with him to all the parts. I went through the globe with him to tell me then who would be the next sort of superpower. And he says that Russia will play a big part and will be a very, very important place on the planet where a lot of the power will reside, but it won't be the one supreme power ruling.
Okay. I want to move into a question here. Some people may be uncomfortable with this, but I think that since we have this kind of privileged access to the other side, maybe we can get some more information on this. I know what Eric thinks about this, but are aliens, extraterrestrials, real? Does it turn out that we are being visited by extraterrestrials?
Oh, so interesting. He's going to all the stories we have on Earth about gods and beings and this and that and all these amazing things that we have, and he's saying, what are these? These are all some of the stories are emerging from the alien connection that we've had since a lot of years, thousands of years, that we have evolved ourselves. So aliens have been a very important part of our culture, of our stories, of our legends and myths, and so they have always been a part of us.
How do we differentiate, though? I mean, when we look back over the myths, the foundational myths, you got the Sumerians ascending up to the top of their ziggurats and worshiping divine beings like Enki and all the great Sumerian gods and so forth coming down from the heavens. How do we know, when we're looking back through these stories, how do we know when like a divine visitation was a spiritual being or an actual extraterrestrial? I mean, how do we differentiate between the two?
He is talking about when there are specific connotations which talk about sky beings, sky people, and things like that in the stories. You can safely say that most of these are about alien beings. And the things that have taken the form of culture, the religion, that have taken the form of philosophy in terms of other beings,
Mm-hmm.
then it's the spiritual beings which we are uh, communicating with in terms of our own growth. Then, which that's a very nice explanation. He's talking about these beings which are not alien. We'll talk about us becoming more aware, becoming better within us. So beings that help us help ourselves will take the shape of religion, and the beings that come and give us knowledge, just give us sort of knowledge about things, just sort of they bring like a boost in our growth, like a catalyst in our growth. This is teach us about technology, about just how things work, how to use our environment better. Then those will be the alien beings.
How long have aliens been studying us?
Do you thousands of years? Do you want like a specific time, or
No, that's
is
not
that
necessary.
specific?
Thousands of years is about, yeah. That's so they've been around for a long time. I mean, they tend to there tend to be a lot of sightings after World War II, starting with 1947. A lot of UFO sightings, and Jung himself wrote his treatise on seeing things in the skies as a modern myth, as an updating of people seeing things in the skies forever, going way back. So I was just curious how far back they go. Do they go back like into the Paleolithic when we were in caves, or is it something that is more recent than that?
He's saying the aliens have always been around. But the important question to ask is, when did we become interesting enough for them? Like that evolution process.
Right.
That's what he's saying. So he's saying it is at the same time when the language started evolving.
Uh-huh.
That's when we were becoming more conscious, more aware. So whenever, I don't know when it was, that we started, our language started evolving. That was the time around where the attention sort of increased towards us.
So that's probably going, I mean, that's going so far back that it's, I mean, because language goes way back. Joe, you talked about in your writings that language may be as old as the making of the first tools, since the same part of the brain that's involved in the making of tools, and this would be Homo habilis, let's say a couple million years back, is also involved in the formation of language. So we're talking 2 or 3 million years back here.
Yeah, I was asking him whether it was just like the clicks and the shouts and the different voices that we sort of had.
Uh-huh.
Was that the language he's talking about, or is he talking about when it was actually taking a form of a quite sophisticated language, sort of being means of communicating ideas and stuff? And he's saying, no, it was actually when we actually started doing the clicks and the sounds and the different, just sort of starting to use our vocal cords. And so that's when the interest grew. But as we started evolving into a sophisticated language, the other beings, the aliens, actually sort of became more interested with the possibility of having an actual conversation with us, and in the sense of interaction, a useful interaction with us. So that's what he's saying.
But what I don't understand, Joe, is how do you differentiate between gods as symbols, gods as real beings, and aliens? It's like there's 3 different categories there. So we've got the idea, you always used to say that gods are just symbols of psychological states of consciousness. But I think it does turn out, I think we'll agree that once you got on the other side, you find out that they're spiritual beings are real, they're actual, they're there. But I mean, how do we tell the difference in looking at these ancient myths between gods and aliens? How do you tell the difference?
He was, sorry, I lost that thought about God. Yes, he was putting it very beautifully. He was saying, I will look at God not just as any sort of spiritual being. If you ask me what God is today, he believes that that being is the being who has transformed into this amazing consciousness and holds a lot of wisdom. So, so there can be millions and billions of gods in this. There are millions and billions of gods who have this very higher level of awareness and consciousness and hold a lot of wisdom. And then there are other beings who also have a higher level of consciousness and wants to help us on this plane. So you can say that beings that have worked on their own evolvement and sort of gaining a higher perspective over things, they can be called sort of angels and beings. And there are the other beings who have a far greater awareness and a far greater consciousness. Just like we are all humans, but someone holds an immense amount of compassion and hence holds a lot of strength within. So he was giving the example of Mother Teresa. He was saying she is also a human like any other human. But because of the compassion that she held within her heart, she had this amazing wisdom in her, and she had so much strength to affect the life of so many people. So the more you let go of yourself, your own ego, the more you give yourself, the more of a hero you become. The more powerful you become. So that's what he's saying, that there are people who are more powerful in that way because they've let go of their own ego as me, I. So it's not about them anymore. It's all about everyone else. So those will be the more powerful beings. You can say they are gods.
I see. When we were talking with Oswald Spengler, he raised the possibility that a planetary scale religion could be catalyzed by our actual physical contact with alien beings. Is that something that sounds right? I mean, do you agree with Spengler's assessment there that a planetary scale religion would come out of that contact if it ever became well known?
He was talking about how that has happened in the past. So I'm asking him whether it will happen on a planetary level, sort of. Everyone will follow that religion. Is that what your question is?
Yeah, that it would become all-encompassing, just as our technology has encompassed the globe and everybody has it now. But what about our religion? Would there be a planetary scale religion that would come out of that, such an encounter?
Religion in the sense the aliens would be considered as gods of that religion?
Yeah, most likely, I would think, yeah.
He is talking about how their ideas will influence us a lot. And the aliens would be seen more as teachers than gods. And he's not calling it a religion. He's calling it an ideology or a philosophy
No.
or a way of living. And yes, the aliens will hopefully play a part in shaping our new um, way of life that we will all follow together. Because he's saying that's a good thing.
Yeah. Will we ever colonize other planets? Is our technology going to develop to such a point that we're actually able to extend it to other planets? Is that going to happen?
Because it's a very funny conversation I'm having with him. Because I am from this reality. My brain sort of thinks no, it's not possible. And he's telling me anything is possible.
Sure, it is. Absolutely.
So, so will the colonization into other. Um, okay, that's very interesting. Not while we are in this body.
Uh-huh.
He's saying the bodies will transform, and then we can go to other planets. Not with this body.
Okay, so that's going to be more of an astral type of thing than a physical thing.
No, there will still be a part of physicality involved.
I see.
But
So this
it
is like
will
a
be
future evolution.
yes, future bodies. But I have heard this concept so many times, or I've heard beings tell me about the light body, but
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
really, in my brain, it doesn't register what that is.
Uh-huh.
They talk about a light body,
Yeah.
which will still be a physical form.
Still a physical form, but it's like a more etherealized version of our physical
Yes,
body.
probably. I
Yeah,
don't know. Yes.
it's more refined, higher vibrational frequencies and so forth.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Because he was talking about how the current body that we are in could not travel fast enough, could not take the speed, the impact. So, and that's the reason that with this body, we cannot take this. It's very heavy luggage.
Right.
So we have to transform ourselves in bodily, in a physical form, to be able to travel to the that can support our life.
Uh-huh. That's fascinating. All right, so that's sort of looking into the future of humanity. I want to take just a second to, because it was one of your areas of expertise, to look back at the past. I've often suspected, although you never mentioned this, but I've often suspected that when the Cro-Magnons came on the scene into Europe, this is going back to 40,000 years ago, Europe had already been inhabited by Neanderthals for hundreds of thousands of years. They were there going well back, 500, 600,000 years ago. But once the Cro-Magnons have migrated up out of Africa, gone through the Middle East, and gone into the Eastern Corridor, it seems like once they got to Europe, suddenly by 27,000 years ago, the Neanderthals are extinct. That's very highly suspicious to me. It sounds like there was a race war. There might have been genocide, ethnic cleansing. Is this correct?
He's not. He's giving me visuals, and he doesn't show me a picture of something that would look like ethnic cleansing. Sort of something that has been done purposefully, mindfully, sort of to cleanse those the Neanderthals. Um, he's giving me a visual like it was a normal progression, an organic thing. So just the fight between the two clans and the stronger winning.
Okay, well, then there was some kind of a rivalry then.
Yes.
Okay. I see. All right.
It was very organic and very progressive and very evolved. It's a part of our evolution, you say.
Joe, you wrote about how you thought that the oldest extant religion on the planet right now is the worship of the bear, which is a circumpolar. The Ainu in Japan practice it, but it goes all the way back to the Neanderthal worship of the cave bear. Does it turn out to be that it is really the oldest religion? Is the bear the oldest worshipped god that we know?
He said that. Very interesting what he's saying. Super interesting. I was arguing with him. I was saying, isn't the sun supposed to be the first god? Because that would be the first thing we sort of see.
Shruti, you haven't learned this yet, have you? Never get into an argument with Joseph Campbell. He always wins. he's gonna win every time. No, I'm just fooling.
No, that's true, because he explains it so well. He is saying, I said, aren't the Egyptians the first one? I was saying, that's my understanding, that
right.
They worship the sun god, and that would be the first, or I don't know. But he said, he showed me when we were cave people, that visual. And so we are surviving out in the wilderness, fending for ourselves. What's the basic thing we needed? We needed to eat, and we needed a place to rest. That is when we're starting to become aware of something being more powerful than us. So he's saying that were the two basic things that we need: food and shelter. That was, clothing also was not important at that time. So he's saying food is sort of, we go and find it naturally. We hunt, we gather, all of that. But the place to rest would be the caves, he said. And in the caves, there were bears. But he shows me a different being, not the sort of bears that we have now. A more powerful being.
Yeah, the cave bear is extinct. It was a huge animal.
Okay. So he says that would be the first more powerful thing than us, like us, but more powerful than us, that we had to fight, that we were fearful of. So if we win that, if we are able to take the cave from the bear, then we get that basic need met. And so because this being is more powerful and we need something from it, we sort of look at it as a deity in the hopes of getting things from him, or him leaving that cave on his himself and we getting that cave from him.
Okay.
So that's why he argues, or he concludes that is why the cave bear would be the first ever godlike creature for us.
I see. During the end of the last ice age, as the glaciers were melting about 12,000 years ago or so, a lot of animals became extinct, like the woolly mammoth, for instance. I'm wondering, was it humans that caused these animal extinctions, or was it a natural process of the changing of the climate?
He's saying it was the natural process of the changing of the climate, which humans banked on or used the climate change to their benefit and killed the mammals as well.
So it was both, really.
Really, but the climatic change would be the starting point of it.
Uh-huh. Okay. All right. Was one of your favorite philosophers was Plato, and I'm wondering. I asked Arthur Schopenhauer this the other day, whether Plato's philosophy of the forms on the other side, pre-existing physical incarnation. Does that turn out to be true? Was Plato right, basically? Was he right about the forms existing on the other side and before physicality, before physical biological forms?
He's saying Plato was right on many levels. He's saying Plato was right. And I need to find out more about Plato because you've asked this question before and I get
we'll
the same.
interview him, Shruti. We'll get Plato. We're working our way back.
No, I need to read up a little bit about him because these people talk about him in a very sort of awe-inspiring way in the sense that look how right he was about things, and the way he understood things and formulated things and ideas in his mind are very accurate.
Okay.
That's how these spirits give me the feeling.
Uh-huh. Joe, your last book that you were working on was a multi-volume encyclopedia of world religions, the historical atlas of world mythology. You weren't able to finish this. Was that a disappointment to you that you weren't able to finish it?
Sorry, your voice got disrupted in between. Could you say that again, please?
I was asked whether Campbell was not able to finish his last book, The Historical Atlas of World Mythology. Was that a big disappointment for him not to be able to finish that?
He's saying, of course it was.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how there are many things that were on his mind that he wanted to write in it, which could have been very enlightening.
Yeah. Okay. Many of our films and popular novels nowadays, and I know you are aware of this with stuff like the Star Wars films and so forth, deal with technology as a problem. We see a lot of films in which you get homicidal machines like HAL 9000 in 2001: A Space Odyssey, or in the Terminator films. You get armies of robots. Are these sort of nightmares about technology? I mean, are we having nightmares about it? Have we over-technologized the planet? Have we just taken it too far? Or is it the case that it's exactly where it needs to be?
So you're asking him about his views on the current technological advancement?
Yeah, right.
He is talking about how it is a natural process to be fascinated by something like technology for us. That's what he's saying. By something so powerful, it's very easy to be fascinated by it and what it can do. So it's that fascination that shows in all the he's talking about technology and power, and technology with good how technology can be used for harvesting power, and how technology can be used just sort of to see what else it can do, sort of to help us grow as a collective. So he's not surprised by what is happening with the technology now and what we show on the television and everything with the guns and everything. He's saying that's what you do when you have a lot of power. When you see a lot of power in something, it gives you a sense of power and control and supremacy. So that's why it comes up in the movies in that way. Technology is seen as the power, and the history also supports. He's saying the history also supports that idea. The country that was technologically more advanced, I think that was in World War II, that the country who's more technologically advanced is seen as more powerful and is feared by others. So that has been a part of our history, he's saying. But then he was giving me a visual of Steve Jobs and how he used the power of technology to help us connect in terms of how everyone is connected to each other through their phones now. So he's saying it has both aspects of how some people look at it as a way to get power, and some people are just curious to see what else it can do, how cool it can be, in that sense.
And we wouldn't even be having this conversation without it. So we got, we can't knock it too much, right? So, all right. Joe, what was your favorite incarnation?
Past life?
Yeah.
He was also an observing alien. I remember someone else was
Spangler.
Okay. So he shows me that he is observing humanity.
Okay. He was an alien observing humanity, and he liked that a lot, huh?
He liked that a lot.
Uh-huh. Okay. Joe, what do you spend most of your time doing on the other side? I mean, I think this is, it sounds like a silly question, but it really isn't, because I think a lot of people, when they think about the soul leaving the body and going to the other side, you no longer have to worry about sleep or food or sex, right? And none of those biological things. So what do you do with all your time on the other side?
He takes part in the creation, he says, of things. He influences creation, and he's influencing our, very interesting, he's influencing our growth as collective. So that's why he says he's taking part in the creation. He's taking part in the creation of stories, of he's affecting the culture in some way, our culture.
Nice. I like that answer.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So saying whatever I have been talking about till now, learning about our past and talking about those myths and stories and culture and legends, he's taking part in creating them now.
Wow, that's great.
This interview is a part of that thing.
Yeah.
And he's also learning things on a deeper level of how those stories come about and things.
Here's a question I have for you, Joe. You used to point out the fact that one of the things about the way different civilizations, especially the contrast between the East and the West, the way that they picture the afterlife. In the West, the personality tends to be retained in the afterlife. Dante, when he goes down into hell, recognizes all the people that he knew in Florence. Their personalities are still intact, whereas in the East, in Buddhism, the personality is kind of shed, and the soul is just this reincarnating monad. It's like a unit of consciousness, but not with any kind of sense of personality. And we're obviously communicating with you in the sense of communicating with a distinct personality. Does the personality survive in the afterlife? Is it something that stays there forever, or is it something that you gradually shed over time?
he was talking about how personality is shaped. It's shaped. Okay, he's comparing why that is in the Western and the Eastern culture. Why the difference? So the first thing, let me first talk about those things that you've spoken. So he's saying that personality is shaped by memories, by experience, by genetics sometimes. So there are these different things that play a part in shaping a personality. So that's what he would call personality. And then he was talking about why the way it is defined differently in the Western and Eastern culture. Because the Western culture is, or let's say the Eastern culture is more deeply spiritual than the Western culture. The Western culture is it deals with more of a tangible things, more material. And the Eastern culture is more spiritual. Although what survives in the afterlife doesn't differ, it's the same, both sides. So sorry, and what was the question? Why is
I'm
it?
just wondering about the personality. I mean, we're interviewing these people who have crossed over to the other side, and it doesn't seem to be the case that no matter how long they've been there, the personality is still there, and we're still communicating with it. So I'm just wondering, does it ever disintegrate, or is it always there?
Yes. So the personality survives both the cultures. The same personality will survive. The memories and everything else is retained. Although the longer, although the ego, the I, and how separate we see ourselves from the whole. It depends. It depends on what we focus ourselves on. So the more we focus ourselves on separating and becoming I, the longer we will retain our personality. The more we let go of the I, the quicker we lose the personality and become a part of the whole.
Okay, that's fascinating. All
The
right.
transformation thing is the change of consciousness, transformation of things.
Yeah. Have you had any contact with your favorite novelist, James Joyce? I'm just curious.
Mm-hmm. Novelist. He's talking about the characters in the novel that he wrote. He's saying we discussed one of the female. Was there a novel about a female?
Yeah. Molly Bloom in Ulysses, and then she becomes Anna Olivia Pluribel in Finnegan's Wake, where she's more archetypal. More. She's more of a spirit than a character.
Because he almost spoke about that female character as we met her or someone not a thing of imagination, but someone who's real. That's how he referred to that character.
Oh wow!
So almost like we analyzed her and we sort of spoke about that character quite a lot. He's saying this one female character.
But have you had any contact with Joyce himself?
Yeah, that's what, because when they met, they spoke about this particular book where he's written about this female character.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can see them doing that. It's the two of them. All right. Let's see. I think those are all the questions I had for you, Joe. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. I think we covered just about everything. Are you planning on, do you have an incarnation going on right now on the planet?
He's saying, no, I'm too busy here.
Yeah, too
So
busy.
flying out.
And
I'm
what,
having a great time. He's saying, I'm having a great time. I'm enjoying myself in this, in this plane. And yeah.
what do you think that, I mean, what would, I asked this question, so far I've asked it every time. What do you say to someone who is skeptical about the possibility that we could even communicate with you like this? What do you say to that? How do we convince people that this is real?
He got very excited there for a moment. He was like, that's the best place to be skeptical. And he's saying, be skeptical, be true to what you feel. And he's saying, it will keep bothering you. This thing will keep bothering you, and this will become a myth that you don't understand.
Uh-huh.
And this will become like something that is you can't touch, you can't understand. But it's in your unconscious state, you will believe this because you can feel the truth, but then it will become that truth that is ununderstandable, and then that's the myth that becomes the legend, that becomes the story. So he's saying, be skeptical, follow your heart and see where it takes you.
Excellent. I loved it, Joe. Thanks for coming down and talking with us. That was a great conversation. That was a lot of fun. Thank you very much, Joe.
He says it was a lot of fun. He's saying thank you for inviting me.
Oh, yes. Excellent.
I had fun. He's saying I had fun talking to you.
Okay, then. Thank you. And thank you too, Shruti.
He's blowing kisses. He's blowing kisses.
And by the way, we should mention that you have a website, ShrutiKamble.com, right? That people can go to who want to request your services for astral technologies and so forth. Okay. All right. All right. So we'll wrap this one up. Okay.
All right.